There is a moment that comes quietly, without announcement. You are standing in front of a mirror one morning and you pause. Not because of what you see, but because of what you feel. Something inside you has shifted. The urgency that used to drive you from one goal to the next has softened. The noise that once filled every corner of your days has started to fade. And in that silence, a question rises from somewhere deep within you. Is this truly how I want to spend whatever time I have left? That question is not a sign of weakness. It is not depression speaking. It is wisdom. It is the ancient, undeniable voice of a life that is ready to grow deeper rather than just longer. And it is the same question that the Buddha spent an entire lifetime answering, not with complex doctrine, but with something so simple and so powerful that it has guided millions of human beings through the very same threshold you now stand at. Old age in the modern world is treated almost like a problem to be solved. We are bombarded with advertisements that promise to reverse it, slow it down, or at the very least, hide it. Society places its applause on youth, speed, and accumulation, and quietly turns away from the wisdom that comes with years. But the Buddha saw it differently. He saw old age not as a punishment or a failure, but as one of the most sacred seasons of a human life. A season where the unnecessary finally falls away. A season where the heart is finally given permission to rest. And a season where the most important truths about living finally become clear. The 8 teachings in this sharing are not just philosophical ideas. They are lived practices, drawn from thousands of years of human experience, refined by teachers who walked through suffering and came out the other side carrying something luminous. Whether you are in your 60s, 70s, 80s, or whether you are younger and you love someone who is aging, these teachings are for you. They are for anyone who has ever sat with the feeling that life is going faster than expected, and who wants to meet whatever remains with grace, courage, and deep peace. The first truth the Buddha offers to the aging heart is one of the most confronting and, ultimately, one of the most freeing. Everything changes. Nothing stays. The Pali word for this is anicca, and it is the bedrock of all Buddhist understanding. Your body is changing. Your relationships are shifting. The world you grew up in is no longer the world your grandchildren are inheriting. The career that once defined you may be behind you. The health you once took for granted may now ask more of you each morning. These changes are not cruelties. They are the nature of life itself. And when you stop fighting them, something extraordinary happens. Peace becomes possible. Most of the suffering that comes with aging does not come from the aging itself. It comes from the gap between what is and what we wish still were. The mind clings to a younger version of the body. It replays decades-old conversations and grieves friendships that drifted. It rehearses regrets like a musician stuck on the same broken chord. Buddhism invites you to set down that instrument. Not to pretend the past did not happen, but to stop letting it take up residence in the present moment. Ajahn Chah, the beloved Thai forest teacher, once said that if you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. And if you let go completely, you will have complete peace. Old age is the season that gives you the greatest reason to let go completely. The second teaching is about the gift of silence, and why the years you are living now are uniquely designed for it. In earlier seasons of life, silence can feel threatening. There is always somewhere to be, someone to impress, something to produce. Identity is wrapped up in busyness, in titles, in achievements. But as the years pass, the scaffolding of the constructed self begins to come down, often not by choice. Retirement arrives. Children build their own lives. Social circles shift. And suddenly there is more stillness than you have ever known. Many people panic in that stillness. They fill it with television, with worry, with activity for its own sake. But the Buddhist wisdom is this, that silence is not emptiness. It is fullness of a different kind. The monk Thich Nhat Hanh, one of the most widely read spiritual teachers of the 20th and 21st centuries, taught that the present moment is the only place where life is actually happening. The past is a memory. The future is imagination. But right now, this breath, this heartbeat, this quality of light coming through a window, this is real. And the extraordinary thing about old age is that it brings with it a natural invitation back to the present. The future, which once seemed infinite, now has a visible horizon. And paradoxically, that visibility is not a shadow. It is a clarifying light. It shows you what matters. It shows you where your attention truly belongs. The third teaching addresses one of the deepest sources of suffering in old age, and that is the weight of regret. So many people arrive in their later years carrying a silent burden of things left unsaid, choices they wish they had made differently, relationships that ended badly, opportunities they let pass. Buddhism does not ask you to pretend that regret is not real. It does not offer hollow reassurances. What it offers instead is something far more practical and far more transformative, and that is the understanding that the self you were when you made those decisions was doing its best with the awareness it had at the time. Compassion, in Buddhism, is not only directed outward. It must also be turned inward. The teaching of self-compassion is not about excusing harmful behavior. It is about releasing the self from a prison of ongoing self-punishment that serves no one. When you carry regret like a stone for decade after decade, it does not undo the past. It only diminishes the present. And the present is where your life still lives. There is a story told of an elderly monk who was asked, near the end of his life, whether he had any regrets. He thought for a long moment, and then he said gently that his only regret was the years he spent being unkind to himself. To release regret is not to abandon accountability. It is to transform it. To say, I understand what happened, I have learned what I can, and now I choose to live freely in whatever days remain. The fourth teaching speaks to the nature of relationships in old age, and it may surprise you. Buddhism does not tell you to surround yourself with as many people as possible. It does not measure the richness of a life by the size of its social circle. Instead, it teaches the value of deep, honest, present connection over the performance of connection. Many people in their later years find that their social world contracts. Old friends pass away or move. Colleagues scatter once professional ties dissolve. Family members are absorbed in their own lives. This contraction can feel like loss, and in some ways it is. But Buddhism gently reframes it. It says that what remains, the few true and nourishing relationships that endure, are more precious than the hundreds of surface-level connections that once filled a calendar. The Buddhist concept of Kalyana, or spiritual friendship, teaches that we flourish most in the company of those who support our highest well-being. Not those who flatter us, not those who enable our fears and distractions, but those who see us clearly, love us honestly, and walk alongside us with patience and truth. In old age, this kind of friendship becomes not a luxury but a lifeline, and you do not need many of them. You need real ones. You need the kind of friend with whom you can sit in silence and feel entirely at home. The kind of family member or community you can be completely honest with. The Buddha himself said that noble friendship is not half of the holy life. It is the whole of it. The fifth teaching is about the practice that every great Buddhist teacher has called the most essential gift you can give yourself at any age, and it is meditation. Now, before your mind rushes to assumptions about what that word means, set aside any image of complicated postures or foreign rituals. At its simplest, Buddhist meditation is the practice of learning to observe your own mind without being controlled by it. It is the training of attention. And for someone in old age, it is one of the most powerful tools available. Study after study from institutions including Harvard Medical School and the National Institute on Aging has found that consistent meditation practice is linked to reduced anxiety, improved emotional regulation, better sleep, and a greater sense of purpose and well-being in older adults. But beyond the science, the deeper value of meditation in old age is this. It teaches you to be with yourself. Many people have spent decades running from themselves, filling every quiet moment with noise, distraction, and doing. Meditation asks you to stop running, to sit, to breathe, to notice. And in that noticing, something begins to settle. The chatter of the mind quiets. The urgency of old fears loses its grip. The beauty of a simple breath becomes, astonishingly, enough. Teachers from the Vipassana tradition often say that the most common report from older students who begin meditating for the first time is not that they found peace. It is that they discovered, sometimes for the first time in their lives, that peace was already there underneath everything, waiting quietly for them to arrive. The sixth teaching goes to the heart of what old age in a materialistic culture so often misses, and it is the practice of gratitude. Not gratitude as a forced exercise, not the kind you perform to seem positive, but the kind that arises naturally when you begin to truly see what is in front of you. Buddhism teaches that ordinary life, when truly seen, is astonishing. The fact that you woke up this morning, the fact that your lungs expanded and contracted without being asked, the fact that someone, somewhere in your life, has loved you, the fact that you have tasted food, heard music, watched the sky change color at the end of a day. These are not small things. To the untrained mind they are invisible, background noise behind the pursuit of something more. But to the mind that has been stilled, they are everything. The monk and author Shunryu Suzuki famously said that in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind there are few. Old age offers you the rare gift of beginning again. When you are no longer defined by your career, your productivity, or your social status, you have the chance to encounter your own life with fresh eyes. To taste a cup of tea as if for the first time. To look at a grandchild's face and see in it not just the future, but the entire miracle of existence. To walk through a garden and feel, without needing to explain or justify it, a profound sense of belonging to something vast and beautiful. This is what the Buddhist tradition calls beginner's mind, and it is available to you regardless of how many years you have lived. The seventh teaching addresses something that most of us carry deep in our chests and rarely speak aloud, and that is the fear of death. Buddhism does not pretend this fear is irrational. It does not dismiss it or minimize it. Instead, it invites you to look directly at it. Because the tradition teaches something that many who have walked this path before you have discovered, that when you stop running from the awareness of your own mortality, it does not crush you. It wakes you up. The Buddha's own spiritual journey began, according to the ancient texts, when he encountered for the first time an old person, a sick person, and a person who had died. He had been sheltered from all of these truths for his entire youth, and when he finally saw them, he did not look away. He walked toward them. He sat with them, and from that courageous encounter with impermanence, the entire flowering of his teaching emerged. Death in Buddhism is understood not as an ending, but as a transition. The mind, in Buddhist understanding, is not simply a product of the physical body that disappears when the body fails. It is a stream of consciousness that continues in some form, carrying with it the imprints of how it has been cultivated during this life. This is not meant as a teaching you must adopt as belief. It is offered as a perspective that has brought profound comfort and courage to millions of people who have stood at the same threshold you may now be approaching. The Tibetan Buddhist teacher Sogyal Rinpoche wrote that if we are ever to find true meaning in life, we must develop a relationship with our impermanence and with death, not as an obsession, and not with fear, but with calm, clear-eyed openness. The practice that Buddhism recommends in this regard is simple but profound. It is to spend a few quiet minutes each day in the awareness that this life, in its present form, will not last forever. Not as a morbid exercise, but as a gentle remembering. Because when you remember that your time here is finite, you naturally begin to spend it more wisely. The things that once produced hours of anxiety begin to lose their power. The arguments that once seemed urgent become easier to release. And the moments of genuine beauty and connection that life offers become impossible to overlook. You begin to live, perhaps for the first time, fully. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron puts it beautifully when she teaches that the most precious thing in life is its fragility. That knowing something will end is what gives it its sweetness. The eighth and final teaching is perhaps the most quietly revolutionary of all. It is the teaching of purposeful release. Most traditions tell you to hold on. Hold on to your health, your relationships, your beliefs, your sense of self. The world rewards the grip. It celebrates the fighter, the striver, the one who refuses to give in. But Buddhism offers a different kind of courage, the courage of the open hand. In old age, purposeful release means allowing yourself to be less concerned with what the world thinks of you. It means releasing the need to control how your children live their lives. It means setting down the identity you built over decades and discovering what remains when it is gone. It means allowing the people you love to grieve you one day, without trying to make that grief easier by pretending you will live forever. Purposeful release is not passivity. It is not giving up. It is the active, courageous practice of choosing what you truly want to hold and what you are finally ready to put down. There is an image used frequently in Buddhist teaching of a traveler who has been carrying a heavy pack for a very long journey. The pack has carried everything they needed for the road. But the destination has changed. The journey is entering its final and most beautiful country. And the pack, which once served them so well, is now heavier than helpful. Purposeful release is the act of sitting down beside the road, opening the pack with reverence and gratitude, and laying down what is no longer needed, so that you can walk the rest of the way with your hands open and your back straight and your eyes clear. What you are left with, when you have released the unnecessary, is extraordinary. You are left with presence, with curiosity, with a capacity for a kind of deep, unhurried love that only comes to those who have lived long enough and let go enough to truly receive the people in front of them. You are left with the ability to listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole body, your whole history, your whole accumulated knowing. You are left, at last, with yourself. And if you have walked even part way down the path these teachings describe, what you will find when you arrive at yourself is not what you feared. It is not emptiness. It is not failure. It is not regret. It is something ancient and quiet and undeniable. Something that was there before the career and the titles and the rush and the noise. Something that was always going to be there at the end, waiting with extraordinary patience to finally be recognized. Old age, when you meet it with Buddhist wisdom, is not the closing of a life. It is the opening of a depth that the earlier seasons, with all their urgency and striving, rarely had the stillness to touch. The 8 truths explored here are not a checklist. They are not a self-improvement program. They are an invitation. An invitation to stop measuring your life by what it has produced and to begin experiencing it for what it actually is. A sacred, impermanent, breathtaking gift. Not despite its limits. Because of them. The Buddha did not teach these things from a palace. He taught them from the road, from the forest, from the place of having looked directly at suffering and discovered, on the other side of it, something unshakable. That same unshakable quality lives in you. It always has. And the years that remain are not too few for you to find it. They may be, in fact, exactly enough.